should be sleeping, but you didn't know. I wanna feel you closer to my skin. I think about you when my heart is beating, but you didn't know. I wanna feel you, wanna let you in. This is what you do to me. Let's explore this fantasy. I could take you higher than I know you want it. This is all I ask of you. Let me change your point of view. I could love you better than I know you want it.
I know that.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Technical with Sharlit Elise. My name is Charlotte, and this is episode 9. We're only 1 week away from episode 10. We're about to hit the double digits, but hey, it's only been 9 weeks, and I've been getting a lot better with my podcast. I've been wanting to take this to a whole new level, and every week we get a little bit better, but we wouldn't have been great without you guys. We wouldn't have gotten this far without you guys. Whether you're watching live or on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, thank you guys so much from bottom of my heart. I really appreciate you guys. Today, we got some juicy topics to cover, and that involves a few things that I hinted at before, but you'll see that. But first and foremost, as always, we'll be starting our show with some off-topic things, some highlights of the week, right? So we got 2 highlights for the week, and the first one is going to need you to sit back, grab a coffee, and let me take you on a caffeinated ride. So, you know, Nissan, right? Nissan, the instant noodle company. Well, they're targeting a new demographic. It's you, gamers. It's people on Twitch. It's people with busy lives. And how are they doing that? They're releasing a new product that is specifically for gamers, and it's injecting caffeine into their instant noodles. Now, the product does not have RGB, but it will be hooked up with stimulants so you could get to top fragging. Take a look at the noodles. Gaming cup noodle. Yeah, it's actually a very visually appealing container art. I want to say that maybe it just speaks to me because I'm a big gamer. But I like it. I do like it. I actually want to try it. But it's cup noodles with caffeine, right? Here's another image. Take a look at the contents. It does look good and juicy. But none of the ingredients ever look so fresh. And this is not even that fresh looking. It's just hydrated. They look hydrated. Whenever you eat cup noodles, they're all like a little bit too dry. The second highlight for the week is going back to episode 7. In episode 7, we were talking about ISPs being required to display and itemize all their fees on the bills. ISP labels are becoming a thing, and the FCC is trying to enforce it. Now, ISPs have said, according to episode 7, we were talking about how they said this whole process is too complicated. Why should we itemize what we bill people? It would just make our customers more confused. You know what the FCC said then and what the FCC said now? You can charge less. If you charge less, It's less complicated. Because if you remember, the ISPs, they charge you more money, but they blame it on the government. They blame it on whatever city they occupy. What's up, Allison? Welcome. Yeah, so they just said they increase the price every month when you pay for your internet provider, and they blame it on the government. And while there are government fees, not everything is a government fee. And they don't want you to know that. So an itemized billing will dissolve their ability to pull one over the consumer. And what exactly would the items be? I don't know. That's the thing. They have some city tax, some government tax, some bullshit tax, and there are government fees associated with it. But they make up other things and they just compress all the numbers into one sum. And that's what they charge us. Hi, Sokoro. Welcome to the stream. It's typical greed, yeah, for sure. But hey, the FCC started, in my opinion, it felt like they were getting snarky. They said, if you charge people less, you can put yourself in a position to be more competitive and you won't confuse your consumers. Basically, they're saying, if it's too complicated, just don't charge people that much money, right? Because the FCC knows. FCC knows it's not exactly a part of the government, but it is a government regulating, like it's in association with the government, and they're enforcing some rules on the behalf of the government. So they're just saying charge less. Go FCC. Actually, for once, a government body or government associations really looking out for people. There's nothing for the consumer to lose and only money to save. Yeah, so that about wraps up all the technical stuff, the highlights of the week. No, wait here a second. Tax being part of the bill is not great. That's just an invoice. What am I missing here? Well, that's the thing. The Frederick, they create some additional fee. Let's say your bill is $100. And then they say, because let's say your bill is $100. The government is charging them $10, right? So what the ISPs do is, instead of them paying the $10, they put it on your bill and they charge you for $10. So now your bill is $110. Then what they do is, they're like, you know what? Actually, I think the government wants $15, not $10. All right, Charlotte, your new bill is $115. But since they don't tell you what that extra $5 is for, they make it seem like the government is charging 15 when they're only charging 10. That's basically what they're doing. And every month they're like, well, that damn government charging $16 now, when it's just them jacking up the price for no reason. That's what's happening. So, we'll see. I mean, this is going to pass. The FCC is super resilient, and the excuses provided by the ISPs are nonsensical, right? They're saying, oh, it's too complicated. If we explain it to you, it's too complicated. But we looked at the terms of service on episode 7 of our Technical with Sharlit Elise. We looked at that live on stream, and you saw how long those TOSs are. You know how long TOSs are. So it's incredible that they have no other excuse but to say it's complicated, right? It's like some kind of relationship status with them. It's just complicated. I don't really want to explain it to you. But what I do want to explain to you is the itinerary for today. We got 3 topics. The first is Flipper Zero allows anyone to DDoS iPhones. Anyone with a little time and $175, just about, you can DDoS iPhones. Yeah. We'll talk about the Flipper Zero, but after that, we'll be looking at building a better world one cup at a time. And then lastly, we'll finish with privacy concerns worse than sex toys. You won't believe it. I didn't, but hey, that's the world we live in. Privacy is just another dollar that can be sold and traded upon. But going into our first topic, the Flipper Zero, right? This is a device that has been around and a new exploit has been discovered. So the Flipper Zero allows anyone to DDoS any iPhone that's nearby with pop-ups. The attack, it's called the Bluetooth advertising assault. It uses the Bluetooth low energy protocol, which is for Apple devices. And the BLE, for short, allows users to connect to their AirPods, to AirDrop, all that Bluetoothy stuff, that technology is all using the BLE protocol. And what this does is it allows a user, and the user that was talking about it is called TechCryptic. He is a person who details this method on his blog, including providing the software, right? Including providing instructions on how to install this new firmware onto the Flipper Zero, which allows anyone, just about anyone, to DDoS iPhones. It's pretty incredible, but take a look at the Flipper Zero. If you're not familiar with it, this is what it looks like. That tiny little white device down there, it looks like people have called it a Tamagotchi. If you're old enough to know what that is, then that's a thing. I will not be checking Discord during the show, but I will check it after. Thank you. It's this tiny device that allows us to DDoS mobile phones and actually interact with a lot of other things. So how does it all work? Well, the attacker installs a new firmware on the Flipper Zero. And with custom code on the Flipper Zero, it creates this exploit that takes advantage of the Bluetooth on iPhones. The device, when the Flipper Zero's Bluetooth is turned on after the recoding, it broadcasts a message to all Bluetooth enabled iPhones in the area. It automatically does it, right? It's just like when you're pairing like some earbuds with your phone, right? You turn on your earbuds, you have your phone, the notification pops up. It's basically that. Now, Charlotte, how is this a DDoS? Well, for one, this device broadcasts not just to one phone, to many phones in the area. So all nearby iPhones gets this notification. And this is how the notification looks like. This is what you would normally see, but this is a DDoS in effect. When this pop-up is appearing on your screen repeatedly, you cannot interact with your phone. At least not easily. Anything you try and do, imagine trying to text, type, navigate to settings. It's super duper annoying. And here's the thing. You can even customize the message. I mean, personally, I'm not going to do this, but if I were to change that message, I would write, should have bought an iPhone. I should have bought an Android. Sorry, iPhone, Android. Should have bought an Android because I used to have an iPhone. And that was the days where it's like always iPhone, Android. Like I personally don't care. But today, right now, is probably a better idea to own an Android. It's probably a better idea. Here's the thing though. The Flipper Zero, that tiny little Tamagotchi of a device, it's just a multi-tool. And yes, it has many, many uses. And a lot of them are to hack things. Now, hacking isn't necessarily bad. We talked about this on the podcast. Hacking means to utilize something in an unintended way, right? It could be for good, could be for bad. But most of the time, when people hear the word hacking, they think about negative hacking scenarios. But think of the Flipper Zero, right? Because it is a multi-tool. Think of it like a Swiss Army knife, right? The Swiss Army knife has like a knife, has a spoon, has like a corkscrew. Does it have a spoon? I don't know. It has a nail clipper, tiny scissors. Like you get all these little tools to help you do real life stuff, except in the case of Flipper Zero. It's more about interacting and interfacing with electronics such as phones, electronics such as ID cards. And we'll talk a little bit about that because this multi-tool is just packed full of transceivers, transmitters, and receivers. And they can interact with numerous devices because it is a multi-tool. So some of the things, you use it a lot for access at work, elevators, doors, and printers. Yeah, I was just wondering, why would anyone have a Flipper Zero? But yeah, there you go. It serves a lot of purposes. So I'm going to go through the itemized list. And the first transceiver on the Flipper Zero is a sub 1 gigahertz transceiver. The sub 1 gigahertz transceiver works for things like your garage door, right? Oh, you lost your garage door, but you made a copy of your garage door key on your Flipper Zero. You could use that to activate it. And that's the thing. This device allows you to read information, write information, copy or clone information, and issue commands. So it becomes a remote, as long as it copies the right credentials. Additionally, the Flipper Zero also has a 125 hertz RFID. So what's an RFID? That's the stuff that you see on ID cards, ID cards to access buildings, right? And by copying the ID, you could gain access to certain places, or if you lose your ID, you could use that to access rooms that, you're supposed to have access to, ideally. NFC, it also has an MSC reader. So NFC is the thing on your phone. It's near field communications, I think it stands for. And NFC, primarily, you know it for your credit cards. That's using NFC technology. So whenever you do tap to pay, that's NFC. So if this Flipper Zero can scan a credit card, it can clone a credit card. And then you could take the Flipper Zero and pay with the credit card, essentially becoming a credit card skimmer. And of course, the Flipper Zero also has a Bluetooth functionality. That's how we're interacting and hacking all these iPhones and DDoSing them, right? So that's a thing. Bluetooth not only affects phones and other devices, but also affects some apps. So depending on the app, your app functionality can change. It also has an infrared transceiver. Infrared. Where have I heard that before? Televisions. Those super old TV remotes, which honestly, I still think they use infrared. Those can be copied and reprogrammed. Your Flipper Zero could turn into a remote. Maybe your partner is watching that show that you really hate. Well, you could kind of mess with them, giving them the remote, but secretly changing the channel on your own. I don't know. Eno says, just throwing it out there, the official firmware disables features that would be considered legally questionable, but of course they are unlocked. There are unlocked firmwares. Yeah. And that's how this whole DDoS thing is working. They flash new firmware onto the Flipper Zero. So that's how they're getting around this. And there's two more connectivities. The GPIO pins, which is general purpose input output pins. These are things to connect to your circuit board. You know, like the green boards, which we don't see green circuit boards anymore. You know, the motherboards, right? All those little pins and stuff, they look like little pills. They got the little legs. They look like little insects. Those pins can be linked to the Flipper Zero. You can read memory off of flash, off of RAM. You could just read the memory as long as you connect to the chip itself. And then lastly, it uses one wire, which is like for some old access panels. When it comes to security, there are a lot of places in the world that still use primitive security. One wire was apparently this keypad to enter like a building or something. And it has like almost like no safety features. You can essentially just like connect to it. So all this, that tiny thing has all of this, including a memory card slot. So you could fit all this data and program it to do everything. You know, says you could tap into anything using the GPIO. It's beautiful. Yeah, I've never heard of that, but I did a little research, and it does sound really like that sounds like real hacking. Not this Bluetooth stuff, like a hacker's hack. So the Flipper Zero hacking iPhones is basically what the device was designed to do. Believe it or not. Yeah, it's used for nefarious reasons. But the Flipper Zero is designed to be a pen tester or a penetration tester. It's designed to find security flaws in whatever security software you have, or devices, hardware, software, and to break that. Break into computer things, if you will. So essentially, it's doing its job, and this is specifically what the Flipper Zero says. Flipper Zero says, it is a portable multi-tool for pen testers and geeks in a toy-like body. And yes, it is in a toy-like body, but with real world impact. Says another fun use for it is bad USB. I heard about it. I didn't look into it. Frederick in chat says, yes and no. The concept we are talking about is logic analyzing. It is going to depend on the cycle frequency of both devices. You guys are very, very smart. I will catch up one day. So the GPIO, I'm not very familiar with, but I guess there is like a transfer rate that we have to take into account when hacking those devices. I don't know. I personally don't have any deep interest in using a Flipper Zero. I can't think of a real purpose outside of like circumventing. Oh, one thing I could do is circumvent proprietary software. Remember, we talked about the Flipper Zero having the sub 1 gigahertz transceiver, that could control RGB bulbs. That can control garage doors. Well, I could use a Flipper Zero to circumvent the phone software. Usually they force you to install a piece of software on your phone to control your lights. Well, I kind of hate that because unless you buy all from one brand, you're going to have lots and lots of apps. For me, I don't have a lot of smart devices at home. The smartest device is like in this like 5 by 6 square in my home where I have my computer set up and all that stuff. But I could see that being really useful, especially if you want to all in one key. Eno says, I used the Flipper Zero to shut down a TV where my girl hides the remote for bedtime. That's so good. That is so good. Z says, yeah, I remember hearing about Flipper Zero. Seems they might just use it for pranks, but I assume it's only a matter of time until somebody hacks the planet with one. And this device is only $175. About, I think it's like 160 something, but around 175. And that's a very small price to pay, especially with the tutorials and the software and firmwares provided by people on the internet. Basically anyone could get into it. And don't get me wrong, this is not like, I'm not like promoting nefarious uses. I mean, honestly, there are very practical uses. If you lose your ID, right, you have a copy of it, right, your access card. It's a temporary emergency ID, right? You could also use it to copy your boss's ID, but, you know, I didn't say that. That's on you. Don't say Charlotte told me so, all right? Because you're an adult and I trust that you know what is right and what is wrong. Quinn says the smartest device is Milky. Chonkers heard that. That was not Chonkers saying hi. That was Chonkers flipping you off. Anyways, also says, of course you look up the specs of the Earth circuit. A lot of my target devices make them public for techie and repair purposes. They're talking about circuit boards. So, Z says, I heard from Sharlit Elise that I should not hack my boss's ID. I should not. You have a typo in there, Z. You have a typo. Please fix your typo. So here's the thing. This looks like a toy, but this is far beyond just a toy. The ball is in Apple's court to address this security issue. They need to authenticate broadcasted Bluetooth messages. As of this moment, all iPhones from iPhone 8 to iPhone 14 Pro is vulnerable to this attack. And this was tested by TechCrunch. So, Apple, please get on this security thing. In the meantime, just hope you don't encounter anyone who decides to use all these numerous ways to harass you. Take a look at all the possible notifications that you may see if you so happen to be near one of these devices. So you could see there's AirTag. You could join the Apple TV. Since the messages can be customized, you could even say, fuck you, Scott. I don't like you, Scott. And no one will know. No one will know why Scott is so hated. But everyone will know why that Scott is hated. That's the thing. So, what is the moral stance on the Flipper Zero? And I ask you, do you feel an accessible multi-tool as powerful as the Flipper Zero should be heavily regulated? Now, the Swiss Army knife isn't regulated. You can do things like open cans of food or open your bottle of wine or pretend you're a Boy Scout, which there are other issues with that. But you can also do some pretty bad things like keying your boss's car, which you should not do. You can also do some things like opening all the cans of soda in the office just slightly so that people don't notice, but then it all goes flat. You could use it to stir up some of your boss's food in the fridge without him knowing. And it's up to the user to self-regulate. Because once again, it is a tool. Z says, how do you know my boss's name is Scott? Well, fuck you, Scott. Says in crypto, authenticate BLE signals, the lag would be horrendous. I mean, right now, BLE is already like, you're lucky if you get a 2-second delay. Bluetooth technology is, it's slow. It's just widely adopted. I have tried using, I've timed the lag and delay with Bluetooth technology, like speakers to visuals, and it's awful. So yeah, if it takes time to authenticate the signal, then perhaps authenticate the signal at the handshake at the beginning of the broadcast and not so much during. I don't know. Maybe that'll work. Says, here's the moral stance on it. The device has no fault in how the user decides to use it. Z says, I could cut an escape tunnel out of the walls of this cubicle with my Boy Scout Swiss Army knife. And yes, you can. And then sneak into your boss's office to congratulate him on a good job. Here's the thing. So it's a multi-tool. And right now, it is not illegal in the US. It is illegal in Brazil because the government feels that this would aid in illicit activities. And Amazon has banned the Flipper Zero from being sold on their storefront. And which makes sense because the majority of Amazon's customers pay using credit cards. Amazon deems it as a credit card skimmer. So it would make sense to protect their number one priority, which is money. Not the people, but the money. Because Amazon still, although they don't sell the Flipper Zero, they still sell accessories for the Flipper Zero. Oh, you want a case for your little hacking device? Go right ahead. You could buy one. Orange, blue, black, whatever you want. Or do you want like a screen protector for it? You could go right ahead and look it up on Amazon. Amazon didn't say this, but they're essentially saying, we won't allow you to steal our customers' credit cards. But you can kit out your little hacking device by sending us money. Z says, Scott isn't even going to know what hit him. The plan is coming together. Oh, Jesus. Eno says, that wouldn't work. If the handshake happens only once, I can man in the middle attack the signals with stupid ease. Well, there you go. Comments from a security professional. I try. My suggestion is only a silly idea, but so is this ban, says Frederick. It's a silly ban. I could just make a device like that with little effort. Yeah. People have replicated what the Flipper Zero does with a Raspberry Pi. I think it was at DEF CON, there was a user who had some kind of device broadcasting messages to other people in the same way. But the difference is the convenience factor. That's what we're thinking about when it comes to regulation. If it's so easy that anyone can just buy it, copy instructions, upload the firmware, flash the firmware onto a device, then I mean, do you want 15-year-old hackers running around skimming credit cards? Because that's what 15-year-old hackers will do without much foresight. Says the Flipper is just convenient. It's like buying a cake instead of baking it. Z says, I'd download a car. I would download a car, given the chance. Anyways, the Flipper Zero is a new device that's only been out for 3 years. 3 years. Back in 2020 of August, it was released, and there are constantly new interactions being discovered with the device. But at the moment, there aren't many ways for us to counteract the Bluetooth signals that are being broadcasted. Yes, you could turn off your Bluetooth function, or you can encase your phone in concrete, which is a good way of blocking Bluetooth signals. But speaking of concrete, used coffee grounds makes concrete 30% stronger. Yeah. Engineers at RMIT University in Australia have found a way to process coffee grounds through pyrolysis, which is heating the coffee grounds at 350 degrees Celsius in the absence of air. Using that material, they can replace sand in concrete. So this process results in a coffee biochar. It's biologically charred. And it contributes to a 30% increase, which is substantial given how difficult it is to create good concrete. Take a look at this slide. In the upper left, we have unroasted coffee beans. In the upper right, we have roasted coffee beans. In the lower left, we have used coffee beans. And then in the lower right, we have coffee biochar. So these are researchers at a university in Australia, and they figured out how to change coffee and recycle it to substitute sand. Let's check chat. Z says, so we can make islands with coffee grounds and charge billions for it. Well, technically, if you want a concrete island. Now, concrete is 1 part cement and 3 parts sand. So it's around 3 parts sand. So in order to replace that much sand, we have to make sure we collect enough coffee grounds. Says, wouldn't that island smell? But coffee grounds, don't they smell good? As a person who doesn't drink coffee, don't they smell good? Coffee always smells good, right? So the ratios of the mix will depend on the project, because ultimately there are 7 kinds of sand. There's different qualities of sand. And most of the sand in the United States are crap sand. It's crappy sand that we cannot use for making stable construction projects. They still use it. They use it for sidewalk. That's why every winter the sidewalks crack and chip, because they use crappy sand. You know where all the good stuff is? It's not in the States. It's overseas. It's going into locations where the sand is really refined or crystallized in a certain way. And by collecting the sand, only then can you make really sturdy pieces of concrete. But here's the problem. Importing sand comes with high costs to transportation. I mean, imagine shipping a package. If you want to ship anything remotely heavy, easily $40, right? You want to ship a computer case, $60. And that's only within the States. I assume shipping overseas is over $100, right? Because moving things is expensive and sand is heavy and you need a lot of it. Every year we make 8 billion tons. Is it tons of concrete? It's a lot of concrete. And in order to satisfy that demand, we have to go to the far reaches of, let's say, Cambodia to harvest sand. So there's a story in rural Cambodia on this island called Koh Kong. No, it's not King Kong. I get it. Haha, it's funny. I get it. But it's called Koh Kong. And in Cambodia, there is a man who has a family of 8. He's a fisherman, and his name is Chan Vanna, right? Weird name, but sure. He makes a living by fishing in the river. And everything he catches is to provide for his family. But up until 10 years ago, he was fine, except for one day when giant excavators came to his island and started harvesting and dredging up the river. Dredging up the river means to take material from the bottom of the river and extract it. This is what Chan Vanna said. They never discussed with our community. They came to dredge and the land fell down and the water became deep. Z says, if this Chan Vanna guy becomes king, then he's the king of Kong. Son of a bitch. It's actually really good. All right. I give it to you, Z. Nice one. Nice one. But dude, you totally take me off my train of thought. But so what happened to Chan Vanna is that it's a tragedy, right? Because he makes his living fishing from the river. But with the river bottom dug up, the river became deeper. The water has started to wash away the soil, the sand at the bottom of the river. It washed away the riverbeds, the edge of the rivers. The river became deeper, it became wider. People could no longer traverse the river on foot. They need a boat, right? Because this was a pretty shallow river where fish can lay eggs. But now that the river's larger and deeper, the local fish cannot lay eggs. They cannot spawn more fish. Essentially forcing the King of Kong to move and change occupation or fish elsewhere. So that's how a simple demand for sand is supported by, honestly, unethical practices of harvesting sand. This was not an approved operation, and they go to villages that are not as defined, and they just take whatever they need and they sell it. So while it doesn't affect most of us who live in cities, it does affect the people that live elsewhere. I mean, it is stealing. It's literally stealing their land and then shipping it. But that's how far companies are going, because the world is in a race to collect sand and to sell it. Says the Council of Dads approved that joke. It was a good one. So I want to know, do you guys compost or participate in some form of recycling of organic material? Because this is what coffee grounds are going to be. It's going to be recycled. It's going to be recycled for the purposes of concrete, substituting sand. No longer do companies have to hunt for sand in another country, steal it from the locals, and then ship it with a high cost, mind you, back to whatever project site they have. You can actually harvest or repurpose the coffee grounds that you have in that city to build the city. So that's why when these researchers discovered this idea to reuse these organic materials, it is a big deal because it becomes a win for everyone. It's a win for the planet because we get to save the land from being excavated to death and harvested to death. It's a win for coffee drinkers. Now you have another reason to drink coffee. And it's a win for the construction companies. They no longer have to spend as much money to ship sand from elsewhere. Let's see. Z says, I want to or be likely a compost if I had land to work with. There are ways to compost. I have a friend's mom who, I don't recommend this way of composting, but she composts. She takes, it's rather disgusting. She takes the leftover food, right? Any leftovers, she collects it in a container, one of those like plastic containers, something like this, right? She collects it in here. And then she puts it in the fridge to preserve it for as long as possible. And when she accumulates enough, she brings it to a recycling location. It's pretty vile and it's pretty disgusting. But her intent is good. There are other people who just put in their backyard and let it decay into the soil, returning some of the nutrients into the earth. I don't exactly think that's a great idea either because no one really wants to throw garbage in their backyard. But recycling coffee into biochar can make a great impact on all of us. Wherever you live, you probably have some way of disposing of organic material. Unless you're littering directly into the ocean or chucking it into your backyard, most of your foodstuffs will go into landfills. And those landfills don't utilize that organic material well. The disposal of organic waste into landfills is a major contributor to what consists what the materials in the landfill. It takes up a lot of space. The amount of food people just waste and throw there, these landfills have to process. But by allowing us to repurpose coffee grounds, we can cut out a trip from sending the coffee grounds to the landfill and directly to a recycling plant. The disposal of materials in landfills creates methane emissions, which are 21 times worse than carbon dioxide. So overall, by creating an infrastructure where we could recycle organic waste, we could actually help a lot of people, and we get cheaper buildings for it. Cheaper, but stronger buildings. More valuable, if you will. Eno says, my waste food doesn't end up in landfill. I have pigs and chickens. So you live in heaven. I want pigs and chickens. They're so adorable. They may smell, but I will teach my pigs to brush their teeth and rinse their mouth with a mouthwash. And chickens, I don't think chickens smell that much, right? They're probably not so bad. Also says, I'll start recycling when the big corporations do. No amount of plastic straws I sort in the bins will offset the massive volumes most big industries produce. And that's the thing, right? So while this is all good news, building the infrastructure, enforcing big companies to apply this recycling process is going to be the biggest hurdle. We have all the right reasons to do it. It's just who's going to enforce it and who's going to voluntarily do it. Z says the mouthwash really makes the bacon taste better. Perhaps. Next time you buy pig, make sure you check if they were raised with mouthwash. So, what next? The RMIT team has experimented with other organic materials outside of coffee grounds. And several councils have already approached them and shown interest in their work. The team says, our research team has gained extensive experience in developing highly optimized biochars from different organic wastes, including wood biochar, food waste biochar, agricultural waste biochar, and municipal solid waste biochar for concrete applications. This is from Dr. Mohammed Sabarian from RMIT in Australia. Human biochar, says Z. But I have to say, one of those things that they listed, one of them is poop. Perhaps one day we'll live in a house of poop. But for today, we're more concerned, or we should be more concerned about our privacy. Now, we've talked a lot about privacy in previous episodes, but this product that we're about to talk about is more invasive than sex toys. Care to guess what it is? What is more invasive than sex toys? Because, as you know, sex toys often do have an associating app, and you have to download it and collects your data. And obviously, if it talks about sex, it probably collects more than that. Z says, if only coffee grounds block Bluetooth signals. But it can. If coffee grounds turns into concrete, it can block Bluetooth signals. So it all comes together. So what is this invasive technology that's worse than sex toys? Well, it's the modern car. Yeah. Modern cars invade your privacy more than sex toys. A new study by Mozilla Foundation, the Firefox people, has found that cars are officially the worst category of products for privacy. It is the worst. Mozilla says they are more invasive than sex toys and mental health applications. So maybe you used an app that just collects your sexual health information and your mental health information. This exceeds that by a large margin. Says, good thing I don't own a car then. Well, maybe if you get an old car, you'll be safe. But any of the modern cars, you're probably going to have some problems. Take a look. Mozilla's privacy study says, out of the 25 car manufacturers they researched, 92% of car makers give users little to no control over their personal data. You cannot opt in. You cannot opt out. You have no control. And that's 92% of 25 car manufacturers. 84 says they are allowed to share your personal data. 76% of those 25 manufacturers says they can sell your data. And 56% says they can share your information with the government or law enforcement at an informal request. Look, If anyone's going to sell personal data, it's going to be me. But I mean, not your personal data, obviously. I'm not going to be selling yours. But if everyone's going to sell my personal data, it should be me. What do you want to know about me? Oh, I like raves? Sure, I like raves. Give me $10. But no, that's what almost every single terms of service has somewhere, that they're collecting your data and they're using it to be sold. But we understand that nowadays, whenever we get involved in a new platform or we download a new app or we buy a new device, they're all collecting data. Now, obviously, most of us want to minimize that. Some of us don't care, and some actually want them to collect more data. But the point is, you have no choice. And that's why this is so harmful. If we revisit that last statistic, 56% of car makers do not have to get a warrant to tell law enforcement or the government about your data. So any cop, any police officer can call up BMW or Tesla and be like, hey, I want to know where Charlotte was last Friday, because she said she was at the gym, but I think she's at McDonald's. Anyone with that status, law enforcement officer, can do that. They can just call up. They don't need any other authorization. And that's kind of scary. Says in chat, what's also bad about modern cars and your owned data? Pretty much all manufacturers have proprietary encryption of OBD data. It's my car. If there's something wrong with it, I want to be able to read that data myself, not take it all the way to an authorized service just to find out a spark plug needs replacing. It's the information age where knowledge is power. To coin a term from Mortal Kombat arcade cabinets back in 92. I want to say 92, but knowledge is power, and knowledge is also money. So that brings us to, what type of data do these car manufacturers collect? The information being collected ranges from medical data to how fast you drive, and even the music that you listen to. In fact, Nissan and Kia are allowed to collect information regarding a user's sex life. It is in their terms that they can collect information on your sex life. Whether you engage in sexual activity in your car or not, well, if you do, they probably have information on it. Now, I don't know how they collect this data. I would venture a guess that they use cameras and microphones to identify when you're in that scenario, or they hire some kind of pervert with a telescopic lens to check up on you. But I don't know. I'm just going to assume it's a camera and a microphone. That is yet to be identified. But the fact is, they can know. So if you were Nissan or Kia, how would you track a user's sex life? Like, what possible ways could they track your sex life? And Z says, how do I get hired to be a pervert with a camera? Well, it's pretty simple. Show your internet history. Bring a log of your internet history to Nissan or Kia. Apply for the job, and they'll probably give you a complimentary telescope. Possibly. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. Don't go to Nissan either. Don't go to your boss, Scott. Don't put it on me. All right. You are an adult. When you listen to this podcast, you are consenting that you are of age and you have the sensibilities to act as such. Frederick says, I remember Tesla getting into a legal problem over not wanting to hand over a customer's data to local law enforcement agency. Their argument was no court order, no data. They lost and had to pay a fine. Yeah, well, Tesla is, out of all the 25 companies, Tesla is the most egregious when it comes to privacy concerns. They are. And this is a study. This is a study issued by Mozilla, who has been around the block. And when it comes to privacy, they were one of the first browsers, Firefox, to push privacy and security features. Rom says, is this an 18 only stream? It's an adult only stream, as in be an adult. Don't be a child. Don't be a man child. Don't be a girl child. Don't be any child. Z says, sweet, Nissan and Kia are hiring people like me. In chat says, that wouldn't fly over here in the EU. The GDPR is a sledgehammer. If a person wants their data, they'll get access to their data. And that's why I love the EU. That's why I am in spirit defecting. If you looked at how I type things, you'll notice I put U's where U's belong. I replace Z's with S's, right? Itemize, I spell with an S, not a Z. What's the topic today? We covered, right now we are talking about car manufacturers spying on users and tracking all sorts of data. We talked a little bit about the Flipper Zero hacking iPhones. And we talked about how coffee grounds are replacing sand, or can potentially replace sand, because that's just good for the earth. And is good for our wallets too. Going back, though, to the data that is being tracked and collected by car manufacturers, I have provided a list for all of you. Now, I won't go over every single item, but I will display it on screen for you to see. Let's take a look at this slide. Data car makers collect. We got your name, your address, phone number, email, age, date of birth, your mobile device location. Maybe you left it at home. Maybe you left it at work. They'll know that. Your payment information, your financial account numbers, your credit card number with the CVV code. That's, the little number on the back, and the expiration. Yes, this is an itemized list. Ron says car manufacturers have the luxury of collecting more data than anyone else. And it is true, because these are the items they're collecting. They could collect your driver's license number, your IP address, your disability status, your employee ID, state ID, passport, your insurance policy number. They could copy your signature, your sex life or sexual orientation information, your health diagnosis data, your social security number, your genetic information and data. Your genetic information and data, your facial templates, your facial geometric features. That means they are scanning for cheekbones. Whether you have cheekbones or not, they will scan your face and they will know. They will copy your face. They will take your face off. They also check for physical or mental disabilities, your genetic characteristics. Yes, if they could collect it, they will keep it. Your physiological characteristics, your behavioral and biological characteristics. All of these things are being collected. And that's a shame, because that is a lot of fucking information. Let's see what chat says. Ron says not only your name and bank data, but also your routes that you're taking. I'm holding on to my computer free 2009 car dearly. This is one of the reasons why. Eno says my dream car is a 2002 Honda Accord. Z says, good thing I got rid of my cheekbones. I knew this day would come. So you just got reverse plastic surgery. Ron says, I thought subscribing to BMW service to keep the seats warm was bad. Yeah, because nowadays you have to subscribe to a plan to turn on heated seats, which some companies have had backlash on. So keep fighting the fight. But wait, hold on a second. You thought that long list was it? You thought I was done? Dude, I am not done. There's more. Fingerprints, face prints, voice prints, retina scans, keystroke data, gait, your fucking walk. They collect information how you fucking walk. Sleep data, health data, exercise, religion, philosophical beliefs, notifications, calendars, physical characteristics, language preferences, citizenship status, education, employment history, union information, immigration status, your ancestry, national origin, your sexual activity, your registration and account information, photographs, and user-generated content that you submit. You thought that cute little selfie was worth it? Probably not. Precise location, route history, driving schedule, audio information, voice recordings, calls for emergency and customer service purposes, your gestures, your biometric information, sensor collected data from radar, from ultrasonic devices, from search content, your vehicle speed, your vehicle usage, your habit and style, your pedal positions. Maybe you have really short legs. You didn't want anyone to know, but they will take this information. They will sell it. They'll even tell the police. Your use of an accelerator, your trip start and end time, points of interest, your seatbelt use. Maybe you like to live free and you don't like using seatbelts. Well, now they could retroactively bill you if the cops call you on your seatbelt usage. Information about door locks, your swerving or cornering events. Maybe you like to power slide around the city on Friday nights. That's no longer going to be a thing. Your use of your brakes and your braking habits, how often you charge your battery with electric vehicles, the real-time status of your fuel, your hood, your trunk, your sunroof, information about the usage of vehicle features, how you use your TV screens, your radios, your radio channels, your presets, your volumes, your rear seats. All of these things is just the tip of the iceberg because there's fucking more. There's car crash or near crash or airbag deployments, service requests, your information collected from camera images, your voice command information, your anti-lock events, your security theft alerts, your Wi-Fi data usage, your ambient data, outside temperatures outside of your car, and the brightness of outside your car, 3D images around your vehicle, weather, road segment data, road surface conditions, traffic signs, traffic jams, obstacles, and parking spaces. Because we're all looking for good parking spaces. And if that information can be sold, it will be sold. And if that information can be collected, it will be collected. This is 17 pages of data that's being collected. And this is all done by Mozilla. They checked 25 companies to see what type of information they collect. And this, and I left out a few because it was just getting way too confusing. This is all the data that they're collecting. Z says, they're telling the cops how short my legs are. Frederick says, I heard pedo positions, as in pedo positions. I was like, fuck, is that how I feel about pedophiles? There's like there's philosophical data they collect, whether you believe in the stars and astrology, whether you believe in religious values or spirits or ghosts or like that guy that stays under your bed at night, whether you believe in him or not, they will know. That's why maybe you shouldn't talk inside your car, because if it falls in one of these categories, they'll know about, they'll collect it, they'll build a profile, they'll sell that profile. And with all the data floating around, they'll associate your nonsensical fear of the closet with whatever you said on X or Twitter, if you still want to call it Twitter. X is so hard to say. Eno says, now you'll be able to commit crime with your short legs. Rom says, I bet all this data, minus the car and trip-related data collected by smart TVs. Eno says, I heard fetal position. Rom says, they feed all this data to algorithms and creates a very accurate ad data. Eno says, I use ad block. EU needs to look into this, and that's true. I think EU has been really good with privacy, and I hope that their market share is enough and their power is enough to sway car manufacturers to stop collecting so much data. You don't need to know my genetic material. You do not need to know how I like my coffee. You do not need to know what type of music I listen to. Of course, that is kind of like a piece of data that I expect most programs and platforms to collect. But you don't need to know it. Stop selling me on everything. Z says they know about Scott hiding under my bed. Yeah, your boss hiding under your bed. So if all of this concerns you and you want to sign a petition, I'm going to put a link to the petition in chat. And here it is. This is a petition by Mozilla Foundation, the Firefox people. They are petitioning that the car manufacturers stop collecting so much data, because this is the biggest data collection to date that we know of. There might be more out there, but with cars, it's been an overlooked privacy issue. It's been overlooked. Everyone is so distracted on what apps we download, what social media platforms we're on. When we thought Threads was bad, we thought Instagram was bad, this is 10 times as much information that they're collecting. And granted, there are a lot of details that are collected in regards to how you drive your car and operate it. But there's also a lot of things like ancestry, national origin, that they don't need to know. And at the very least, yes, if you really look for a way to monetize this information, then yeah, they could do it. It can be done. Someone can make money from this. And that's really the problem. This data collection, this whole collection is exhaustive. But there is one silver lining. With all of these tools, all these sensors, facial scans, cameras, subsonic radars, and all these things built into cars, we could repurpose these cars, just like how we repurpose coffee grounds. We could repurpose these cars to extract information from foreign spies. Yeah, we don't need to waterboard people anymore. We just need to put them in a Nissan for a week. Well, that's what we have for today. We covered our first topic, the Flipper Zero terrorizing iPhone users. We also covered recycled coffee grounds being a substitute for sand and building a stronger concrete. And the terrible, terrible practices of modern car makers and how they track everything from your sex life to how you fucking walk. I still don't understand why they need to track how you walk. Maybe they want to see if you have trouble walking to sell you more cars. I don't know. But what I do know is you guys are awesome for being here and listening and hanging out with me. This show is an interactive show, and it really wouldn't be as fun as it is without you guys. If you're a fan of the show, please follow and subscribe. It really helps the channel. Technical with Sharlit Elise returns every Sunday on Twitch live at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Or you can check out the other episodes on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Until next week, I'm going to have gaming stuff throughout the week. Thank you guys so much. Stay tuned for more gaming, and I will check you guys out in a few moments with some Quake 2. Bum, bum, bum. I'm going to read your comments right now. We could build a wall with all those cars. Even the smallest things you may think that make no sense, but they build a super accurate profile based on it. Mercedes made the odd decision to integrate video app TikTok into their Mercedes E-Class sedans early in 2023. Yeah, TikTok isn't exactly known for privacy-respecting app, so having it pre-installed on your car seems not great. Now it's a good time to remind you that Mercedes-Benz own connected vehicle services privacy notice states. Rom Hook says, sex life, more like to have children. Maybe we should advertise diapers or contraceptives. That's actually one way to do it, right? What if the car identifies the person that you engaged with in the future? They're like, oh, you were talking shit behind his back or her back, right? The car will remember your relationship with them. And instead of serving you diapers, maybe serve you condoms next time in ads. Who knows what they'll do? Bum, bum. Oh, perhaps. Okay, I won't read that comment, see. Right? More like divorce. Let's advertise lawyers. Alright, guys. I'm going to roll into a gaming stream. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. This is Technical with Sharlit Elise. I will see you guys soon. Bum, bum, bum.